Hi everybody. In this video we're going to learn or to remind ourselves how to write similes. You'll then be able to use some of this description in your writing this week. So what's a simile? Well, a simile is when you compare something. You're describing it and you're going to compare it to something else. Similes often use the words like or as something as. Let's have a look at how that works. Writing similes with like. So basically you're comparing one thing with something else. You're not saying it is something else, you're just saying it's like something else. So it looks like something. Remember, we're going to use our senses here. It looks like something. It smells like something. It tastes or feels or sounds or moves or even makes you feel an emotion. We're not saying it is that thing, we're saying it's like it. So what might something look like? Well, a person might look like a king when they're all dressed up. They're not a king, they just look like one because they're so beautifully dressed. My children yesterday were saying that the suntan cream smelled like holidays. Obviously, it's not a holiday, the suntan cream, but because we wear it when we go on holiday, it reminds them of a holiday, and they said it smells like holidays. What might something taste like? You're not saying it is a bun or it is chocolate, just that it tastes like something. Well, delicious things, we often say they taste like heaven. Feels like ice. Your fingers feel like ice because they're so cold. They're not made of ice, they just feel like ice. What might something sound like? He sounds like a monster with a sore throat. He's angry, but he's all raspy and croaky. Moves. How might somebody move? Moves like a snake. How might that person be moving? What might that sentence, that simile tell you about that person if they move like a snake? I feel like I've won the lottery. I haven't won the lottery, but something so fantastic has happened that it's just made me feel incredible, and I feel like I've won the lottery. When you're writing this week, you have to describe a building. So let's have a look at the Eiffel Tower and writing similes with like. What does it look like? What does it remind you of? We can't really use our other senses of tasting and smelling, but what does it look like? Well, it reminded me of the letter A. It reminded me of a finger. It reminded me of iron and lace, or it is iron, but it looks like lace. How would we put these descriptions into a simile? The Eiffel Tower looks like a capital letter A standing tall and proud. The Eiffel Tower looks like an iron finger pointing to the sky. The Eiffel Tower looks like tangled iron and lace. So all those sentences, we're comparing the Eiffel Tower with something else that it isn't. It's not made of lace. It's not a pointed finger. It's not a capital letter A. Yes, it's iron, but it's not tangled iron. Here are some similes that I found on the internet. The Eiffel Tower is like a truly tragic lamppost. The Eiffel Tower looks like a trellised spaceship. If you don't know what that word trellised means, look it up in a dictionary. You can use an online one. It's a fantastic description. The last one begins with a simile. It's a fronted adverbial as well. Like a giraffe stretching for the For the leaves from the highest trees, the Eiffel Tower looms above France's capital. You can compare anything with anything. We often begin with our senses, but any verb can go in front of like. Dances, writes, runs, talks, eats, cooks, is. What could go after the word like? Well, it depends what you're describing. I wonder, though, if you could match these nouns with the verbs at the beginning to make them into similes. What might somebody dance like? He dances like a king. He dances like a bear with a sore throat. He dances like a spider. They're all possible. They all create a different picture in your mind. How many different similes can you make? Give it a go, and then we'll move on to the second kind of simile. So we can also write similes using the words as something as. And in between those two ases, we would put an adjective or an adverb. So in between those two ases, we need to put an adjective. An adjective would obviously go with the noun that we're describing. It might be something like shiny or salty or spicy or rough, loudly, quickly, clever. It can be an adjective or an adverb like loudly and quickly. Then you have to think of something else that is shiny. So if we're saying somebody had a shiny face and we want to compare it to something, what else is shiny? So his face was as shiny as a polished mirror. Salty, if we're talking about the peanuts that were salty and we want to use a simile, what were they as salty as? What other things are salty? The peanuts were as salty as the sea. Oh, they mustn't have tasted very nice. The kitchen, maybe the kitchen smelled spicy. What other things are spicy? All sorts of things. I chose a vindaloo curry. The kitchen smelled as spicy as a vindaloo curry. If we're talking about somebody's hands being rough, he had hands as rough as. What other things are rough? Sandpaper. He had hands as rough as sandpaper. They mustn't have felt very nice. If somebody's speaking loudly, what other things are loud? He spoke as loudly as a foghorn. He really, really had a loud, loud voice. If somebody runs quickly, what other things can run quickly, or what other things are quick? He ran as quickly as a cheetah. He ran very fast indeed. The boy was clever. Who else is clever? What else is clever? The boy was as clever as Einstein. Einstein was a very, very intelligent man, so the boy must be really, really clever. You could have a go. Can you make sentences using those adjectives in a simile? So, when we're describing your building, we need to start with adjectives that describe that structure. These are the adjectives that I came up with. I didn't want boring ones, I wanted interesting ones. Impressive, familiar, and intricate. It means it was fancy. So if we start with that adjective impressive, we put it into a simile, we have to think about what other things are impressive. Similes with as work well if you're comparing it to something similar, if it has something in common. So I thought about buildings, other impressive buildings, the Taj Mahal, the Burj Khalifa, the Statue of Liberty. If we put those ideas now into a simile, this is what it might look like. The Eiffel Tower is as impressive as the Taj Mahal. Eiffel Tower looks as impressive as The Statue of Liberty. The Eiffel Tower stood there, as impressive as the Burj Khalifa. Easy peasy. If we go back to those adjectives that we thought of at the beginning now, familiar, what other things are familiar? It might be familiar to the person who is describing it. It might be familiar to the people who see it often. So I thought, well, Buckingham Palace would be familiar to me. It's a famous landmark. To people in France, it could be something as simple as baguettes and croissants, food that they eat all the time. Let's have a look at what they look like in Italy. The Eiffel Tower is as familiar as Buckingham Palace. Everybody knows what it is. The Eiffel Tower is as familiar as baguettes and croissants. It just means it's there all the time. Back to those adjectives. Intricate. What other things are fine and fancy and carefully made? Well, I thought of lace. Those fancy iron gates you get outside people's houses. Spokes on a bicycle wheel. And then we put them into a simile. The Eiffel Tower is as intricate as lace. The Eiffel Tower is as intricate as a fancy iron gate. And finally, the Eiffel Tower is as intricate as spokes on a bicycle wheel. So, what you have to do is begin with adjectives to describe your noun, and then think of other things that you could also apply those adjectives to. Give it a go. I wonder what the most interesting similes will be that you can come up with. Can you include some in your writing this week? We'll be on the lookout for them. Good luck, everybody. Bye for now.